This is the glamorous behind-the-scenes stuff you never see. Me eating oatmeal, sitting on a milk crate, prepping for this video. Hey, beautiful people of the internet, my name is Ryan, and introducing for the first time ever in public the new series that we're doing on this YouTube channel. Tentatively, I'm calling it Close Reading with Ryan. So, I have always felt that while I absolutely love making book reviews, and I'm gonna continue to make them for a very long time, there is this one simple problem with a book review, which is that in order to talk about all that's important, or at least some small subset of all that's important about a book, you have got to fly through things. There's only so much time, and you've got to talk about all this different context, and at least the way I want to do a book review, you have no real time to kind of dive into the text. So you make a really cool thing, a book review, but then you kind of zoom out, or you put the video out and you realize the reader or the viewer of that video has no idea, unless they've read it, what it's like to kind of be among the words, like in the weeds of the book. So I want to do this thing. I love close reading myself. It's always been the best part of reading. Like, thinking back on a book is great, but the best part is always being in the middle of the words. So I want to do this series where I'm going to talk about some books that I'm reading currently, or a book that I'm, reading, or a passage that I'm reading, and I'm just going to go through it kind of paragraph by paragraph and talk about my thoughts. It helps too because you don't actually have to have the book with you. I'm going to be reading, talking, taking breaks, kind of flitting between the two. I will say one thing I don't know is how long that's going to make the video. So I have 2 pages picked out on the book that I'm going to be doing, which is Mao 2 by DeLillo. I just finished it last night. There will definitely be a book review of this coming, but I'm also doing a close reading video. But I've got 2 pages picked out, and I have no idea if we're going to actually be able to get through both pages. So we're just going to start and then see how this goes. I'm a little nervous, which is stupid, it turns out, because the worst case scenario, if this goes badly, is that I just delete this video and none of y'all ever see it. And if it goes okay, then it goes out on the internet, and worst case scenario, you guys disagree with me, which wouldn't be the end of the world. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from page 48 and 49 in this edition of Mao 2. The only thing that you really need to know before we get to these 2 pages, which are at the end of maybe my favorite chapter that Don DeLillo has ever written, is that this book is about a writer, a very famous reclusive writer. His name is Bill Gray. And Bill Gray has published like 2 books kind of earlier in his life, but then it's been a very long time since he's published a book. And in that time, he has kind of, he's gone off into seclusion. Nobody's heard from him. There haven't been pictures of him in a very long time. So he is living this incredibly mysterious lifestyle. Supposedly he's working on a book though, and that, obviously has people very interested. Then we introduce Britta, who is this photographer, and she's doing this project where she only photographs writers. She is kind of traveling around photographing writers, and she finally gets the chance to photograph, Bill Gray. And so she goes kind of under the cover of night to Bill Gray's home, and she's going to take some photographs of him. The first photographs that have appeared in many, many years. And she is taken there by the last important character for this scene, which is Scott. Scott is this like younger man who is an incredible fan of oh, I just about did a Freudian slip there, of Bill Gray's books, Don DeLillo, of Bill Gray's books. And so Scott has kind of approached Bill, and all of a sudden kind of won Bill's trust and become his caretaker. He like takes care of his land, he takes care of all of the press stuff, he actually manages kind of the manuscripts of the work that Bill is working on. Anyways, those are the important characters. What is happening in this scene is that Britta and Bill have finally met, and they're doing the actual photographs. So as this is happening, photographs are being taken of Bill, and he's kind of standing there posing or smoking, and they're talking about his work, and Britta's taking photographs. And Scott is obviously not there. So I'm going to start reading now, and we'll get this going. I've always seen myself in sentences. This is Bill talking. I begin to recognize myself word by word as I work through a sentence. The language of my books has shaped me as a man. There's a moral force in a sentence when it comes out right. It speaks the writer's will to live. The deeper I become entangled in the process of getting a sentence right in its syllables and rhythms, the more I learn about myself. I've worked the sentences of this book long and hard, but not long and hard enough because I no longer see myself in the language. The running picture is gone, the code of being that pushed me on and made me trust the world. So I'm going to pause real quick right there. This is the new book that Bill is talking about. And I love that line about, made me trust the world, as if when Bill is writing really well, he has this certain kind of vision or grasp on the world, almost like one of his physical senses that kind of, sets him at ease. Like, I'm seeing the world right, and therefore things are okay. Continuing on, this book and these years have worn me down. I've forgotten what it means to write, forgotten my own first rule. Keep it simple, Bill. I've lacked courage and perseverance, exhausted, sick of struggling. I've let good enough be good enough. This is someone else's book. It feels all forced and wrong. I've tricked myself into going on, into believing. Can you understand how that can happen? I'm sitting on a book that's dead. Of course, what's happening here is more than that the book is dead. Bill is dying. Bill is almost dead. If he has kind of built his life so that success in writing means to live, the minute that's no longer happening, he's kind of holding on for dear life. So Britta asks him a question. Does Scott know you feel this way? Scott's way ahead of me. Scott doesn't want me to publish. But this is completely crazy. No, it's not. There's something to be said. When will you finish? Finish? I am finished. The book's been done for 2 years, but I rewrite pages and then revise in detail. I write to survive now, to keep my heart beating. What's super important in the syntax of those lines that Bill just delivered is how he introduces it. Finish, period. I'm finished, period. So before we ever start to talk about the book, we have this clever use of the syntax to kind of declare what is happening at this time in the book. Bill is finished. Bill is finished as a human. If this doesn't work out for him, he's dead. He's gone, and he'll not only die, but he'll be forgotten, etc. At least this is what's going on in his own head. Of course, also at this point, we are learning that supposedly this amazing book that Bill has been working on is not amazing, is maybe not good, but then we also are questioning whose senses do we trust here? Do we trust Bill, or do we trust Scott? Has Scott been influenced by Bill? Has Bill been influenced by Scott? Who actually has the right vision here? Britta says, show someone else. She's thinking the same thing we're thinking. Get an extra set of eyes. Scott is smart and totally honest. That I love that line, because if you ever write a sentence that bald, just like, this is what I mean, then there has to be something else going on underneath the surface. And usually what's going on underneath the surface is that it is the exact opposite. If a sentence is that bald, then it's hiding something. Scott is smart and totally honest. He might be smart, but he's not totally honest, and DeLillo is keying us into that. Britta says, he's only one opinion. Any judgment based strictly on merit is going to sound like his, and how it hurts when you know the verdict is true, and how you try to evade it, twist it, disfigure it, and word could get out, and once that happens, Bill is currently like, he's going down the spiral of anxiety. What's going to happen with this book? What's going to happen? And it's not important that that kind of vision of that spiraling makes a lot of sense to us, because it's not for us. It's for Bill. He's going off into his own little world of worst fears. These next lines of dialogue are some of my absolute favorite. Britta says, you finish, you publish, and you take what comes. Bill, I will publish. Britta, it's simple, Bill. Bill, it's just a question of making up my mind and going ahead and doing it. Britta, and you'll stop redoing pages. The book is finished. I don't want to make a fetish of things are simple, but it's done. You stop. On the surface, this is a really fun piece of dialogue because they are not arguing. They are saying the exact same things, except they're saying it with certain tones that make you realize one person really believes it, Britta, and the other person is trying so hard to convince themselves of it and also failing. But what is also going on below the surface here is that this is kind of an argument about Bill's entire, his entire reason for being. Like, what do the last 20 years of writing mean if he doesn't do this? And so he's got to convince himself to do it, even though it's probably a stupid idea. That line, I don't want to make a fetish of things are simple, I adore that line so much, because there's this tendency in writing, and in DeLillo, for goodness sake, to go with the really complex idea, to go for the most complex idea all of the time. And Britta is this lovely character because she's not a writer, she's just a photographer, she just takes pictures. So she comes in and she says, I don't want to make a fetish of things are simple. which means do the damn simple thing, Bill. Like, for once in your life, stop overthinking things. Just do the simple thing. And we've all been there. We've all been told that that is what we're supposed to do. And of course, Bill cannot do that, because most of us cannot do that. Like, we know that, and yet we cannot do it. And this is the, you know, labyrinth of consciousness kind of thing. So there's one more paragraph to end this chapter, and I'll read it to you. She watched him surrender his crisp gaze to a softening, to a bright-eyed fear that seemed to tunnel out of childhood. It had the starkness of a last prayer. She worked to get at it. His face was drained and slack, coming into flatness, into black and white, cracked lips and flaring brows, age lines that hinge the chin, old bafflements and regrets. She moved in closer and refocused. She shot, and he stood there looking into the lens, soft eyes shining. Oh man, the only thing I want to say about that last chapter, because it's got such a music and like a poetry to it that I think to dissect it would be actually wrong of us. That would probably mess it up. The only thing I want to say about that last little paragraph is that it's written like a murder. It's written like she's shooting him, you know, pun intended, no pun intended. The pun's there, that's not the important part. The important part is how it's written, how physically, the like physicality and the violence of that. And I absolutely adore it. Anyways, this has been Close Reading with Ryan. This was an interesting experience. I'm not sure I did that as well as I could have, but we're going to learn together how to do close reading better. What I want from you, if you'll give it, is I would love feedback on how this video went for you, what you think we could do better in a Close Reading with Ryan kind of video, or what you think I should do a Close Reading with Ryan video on. If you've got certain passages or books that you think particularly I would find, really, really engaging, because I'm not going to do this on something that's not particularly engaging for me. But yeah, I would love to see what you think the possibilities of this kind of series are. I have now, once again, made a video that is probably too long. So I'm gonna get off of here and go edit this down and then get it out to you guys. Thank you for playing along with me. This was our first time going back to a piece of literature to talk about it. So I'm working on all kinds of things in the meantime. Cannot wait to get them out to you. So I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for hanging out. Best wishes!